listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Getting on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
All right, there's no one on the planet I'd rather be talking to more than Jane Leavy. Oh my goodness. You
nailed it.
So excited. Nobody I'd rather talk to. So, and not only because I've always admired your work, Jane, but because this book that you have coming out on September 9th, Grand Central Publishing, Make Me Commissioner, I Know What's Wrong with Baseball, How to Fix It. As you know, this is sort of the straight ball right down the middle for us, right?
As the gentleman in the former flannel uniforms would have said, right down the cock.
Right. Exactly.
That's so they know I can talk the talk, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, so, usually, Jane, I just like to sit down and just talk. I don't necessarily have the list of, here's 10 questions, because I think that it's, I love to hear your sort of perspective. Maybe it's a whole nother podcast about journalism and how that's changed and how writing has changed and how covering the team has changed. But one of the things I think that people make the mistake of is they say, when they go and interview someone, they say, here are the things that I have to get to, and they're not listening. And that's so to give you an example, listening to Mookie, I talked to Mookie about podcasting, Mookie Betts, and he said, It made me become a better listener because, you've interviewed plenty of people at their locker and said they just want to get out of there.
Right.
This is all the way of saying, I just want to talk. I just want to talk about this subject. And I am so thrilled about this book, so thrilled about this project. I do want to start with one quote that you have in the book, and please correct me if it's wrong, from Joe Torre. They're asking the imperfect game to be perfect, right? Okay.
And I resent that.
Right. So I do too, as someone who has written a book called The Damn Near Perfect Game, so I'm contractually obligated to resent it. But it's, tell me, let's start this off. First of all, thank you for coming on. I've been ranting too much out of the gate.
No. I'm just, come on, let me have it.
I'm just excited.
It's good. Thank you.
Tell me why you resent that quote.
I don't resent the quote.
Okay.
I resent. Joe is the one who said, and I resent it. It's
and I resent it. Okay. Yeah.
And I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with one of my new favorite people, and there are a lot of them because I got to spend so much time with baseball people. But Pekko Hosoi, who is the head and creator of the MIT Sports Analytics Lab, is a humanist with math skills. I like to think of myself as a humanist who got 320 on my math GRE when they gave you 200 points for signing your name. So she's been educating me about the trapdoors in analytics, and she's not blind to them. It's her life, it's her career. To her, they are a beautiful thing, and I've been able to see them through her eyes as beautiful. I get it, but what she said was, baseball is a canary in the coal mine. It's the warning. It's our warning shot. That's my quote, not hers, of what's coming down the line if we surrender all our human prerogatives of judgment, experience, wisdom to numbers, no matter how good the numbers are. And her point was, the guys who create these algorithms, they're geniuses. I mean, I'm in awe of what they can do, but specifically because I can't do any of it. But what they lack is called in the analytics biz is domain knowledge. So domain knowledge means knowing anything about the subject for which you are creating those algorithms and metrics. So, and she said, and worse yet is that they don't understand why it matters that you know the game. You know, yes, analytics can tell us what ninth will happen to X player in X situation 9 times out of 10, but it cannot predict and it cannot tell you what will happen that 10th time. And that's what makes baseball different and beautiful and not boring, is that you never know what can happen that 10th time, whether it's Aaron Judge screwing up a ball in the outfield in the World Series, or it's Rajay Davis hitting the home run off young Aroldis Chapman. Is he amazing or what? I mean,
Yeah,
she's
I know. I know.
um, or it's Derek Jeter making the flip play when he was unencumbered in that period before people became encumbered by shifts and cards in their hats telling them where to go.
Mm.
Which, as Alex Bregman pointed out to me, you know, is it curtails and it subverts creativity and imagination, and that's what numbers don't have. And I started to hear as I went around, you know, every place I could go to see different kinds of baseball, different levels of baseball, different ages of baseball, different qualities of baseball. Um, every dugout, you heard the same phrase, the human element. We're missing the human element. And that's what they're talking about. And it's true. You can't measure it. And Pecco said, you know, the thing about analytics is it has shown us what things can do, what analytics can do, can show us, yes, athletes are running faster, they're hitting harder, they're throwing harder. It's changed their swings, it's changed the grips, it's changed all sorts of things. But she said, it cannot do the one thing. It can, you know, we've lost the forest because we've lost track of the fact that it can't measure the immeasurables. That's what it can't.
Just said the word which I was going to integrate into the next question I had. So as you're talking, there's about 5 things that I came up on my head, which I'm like, you know, more than 5. But when you talk to people and you go through this line of conversation, tell me your perspective of why can't these ultra smart people, these unbelievably intelligent people, see the forest through the trees? And here's the thing, Jane, before you answer this, is that they'll say they can. Like they'll say they can. Oh, no, no, no. I've heard this so many times. No, 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 no. We take everything into account, right? We take everything into account, right? No, no, no. You are prioritizing something and not prioritizing something else. Why are we not seeing more of these very smart people being able to do that?
Well, nobody has demanded it. Nobody has placed a value on it. As Pecco said, these are people who come to the game or came to the game because they saw beauty in the numbers of the game, which have distinguished baseball since Chadwick, you know, created the scoring system. And it's sort of ironic, isn't it, that the scoring system, which is the fount of all of baseball numerical history, and which makes baseball different from the younger sports that only started tabulating things more recently, NBA, NFL, and NHL. You know, it's like they've been hoisted on their own petard. It's that what they call clean data set of numbers that baseball has that made it possible to start doing all the analytic calculations. I think it's a bent of mind. Why don't I think that way? I can't think that way.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has insisted then, okay, well, if you can't do it, go get somebody who can do it for you, right? Pecco says that they're starting to get, you know, one of the famous analytics, forgive the divergence, but they're starting to get requests for, can you measure grit?
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Right. Measure grit. And you know, and she always says, well, yes, there are things we can measure. And so the fact that people are asking for that bodes well in, in professional and, major sports, because it means they're starting to value it and recognize it as an entity. The fallacy is that they think that too is measurable.
Well, can I interject real quick? I think that, and you tell me if you agree or don't agree. I think a big part of it too is them, people want to cover their ass. That really they want to, they know that tangibly if they say we acquired this guy because look at all the measurables he has. Look at this is the reason why we did this. Conversely, say, hey, listen, I had a hunch on this guy. And if he doesn't work out, then they say, what are you doing? But they need evidence, they need proof, they need to justify. This is their way to justify their decisions more than ever. I don't know what percentage of this is that, and I don't know if you agree, but
I'm not sure. I mean, I think that at this point, the infrastructure of analytics in every team in every front office, some to a greater extreme than others, obviously, some that were, dawdled to get to that place and accept it. There's a huge financial investment in these departments. There's just who was telling me? Ann Killian of the Chronicle was telling me that when Buster came in and took over the team, there was an office that was downstairs near the clubhouse for the analytics guys, baseball ops. That's how they hide the analytics guys. They call them baseball ops. Hey.
yeah.
And he immediately took that space away and put the old Giants trophies down there.
Oh wow, wow.
That's a statement. That is a statement. And God bless him for that, right? Maybe we're starting to see some course correction. I hope so. And rebelling against the imposition from above of who you can use in the ninth inning. I mean, Joe what's his name? Joe
Madden,
Thank you. Yeah, Joe.
Okay.
I was talking to him the other day.
Yeah.
And he's in the book, and he was like, there was an algorithm that told him what pitchers were available to him when. Now, okay, and so when he would get criticized for not using so and so, he couldn't say to the press or anybody else, hey, guess what? I wasn't allowed to use him. Go talk to the machines, right? And then there was a day where, and this is May or June 22, where he was told by an emissary from, I guess it was Perry Manasian's office,
Yeah.
Go take Trout out of the game. Now, Buck Showalter refers to this as the ongoing castration of the American manager. I would say that was a perfect phrase, because he didn't say baseball manager. He said the American manager. And whether it was intentional on his part or not, the fact is that in every way, and this is why baseball, isn't boring and maybe even is essential, because it's showing us what's going to happen, what is happening in countless other, indispensable industries and businesses upon which our lives and livelihoods depend. That there are things behind the scene, it's like the Wizard of Oz, and you and I, Joe Schmo, who don't understand, metrics,
Yeah.
are having those decisions made for us without our knowledge, basically. I mean, who said it was better to be put on hold by a bot when you're trying to return a pair of underwear and wait an hour for the said bot to come back and acknowledge your existence? I know I'm old.
Well,
I know, I get it. I know I'm old.
no, this is, I love this. First of all, excellent analogy. But so I want to, not, obviously the title of the book is Make Me Commissioner. One of the things is sort of what we were just talking to, and maybe what you talk about in the book, is putting the genie back in the bottle. is, we want to find the damn near perfect game. We want to find this, but there's so much of this where the genie's out of the bottle and it's just going and going and going. Whether it's analytics, Jane, whether it's gambling, which is a whole nother conversation,
Yeah.
right? I mean, which MLBs will say, yeah, we're doing everything, and then they're taking more money. They know that this is, and Manfred has said this. I mean, this is the revenue stream is crazy, so they're not turning their eye to it. Whether it's maybe it's even day-lated dollars short when it comes to all the things that in terms of marketing, which they will always behind. But that's what I want to ask you: has a genie come out of the bottle too much to put it back in to recalibrate a lot of this stuff?
I was called an idealist on a podcast yesterday, not in a flattering way.
I would never do that. Never do that.
Thank you. Analytics aren't going away. It's a question of using your human element, your head and maybe your heart, and maybe that thing that analytics says doesn't exist, which is clutch, and all those in indispensable qualities that people used to recognize and acknowledge as being real and which have been called into question. It's a question of reasserting some control over it. Do I think that the analytics are, they're brilliant. They're right. They're right. It's a more efficient swing. They're right. It's a more efficient way to play. You score more runs with a walk and a home run than, station to station baseball. But it has removed the nuance from the game. It has removed the variety from the game. Every team plays exactly the same way. Every team looks for the same batting order. Every team, plays situations exactly the same. I think if owners, general managers start to value some of those old-time skills, and they talk with dollars, they start signing guys who have a throwing arm from the outfield, then people are going to say, oh, I better train up some guys who can throw from, deep right field. So they have to recognize that those things matter. That's what has to happen. And that isn't going to put analytics back in the genie back in the bottle, but it is going to stop it. It would stop it. It would contribute to making it the be all and end all of every decision. I mean, you have to let there be some room to maneuver. How can you tell Dusty Baker, who had played and managed and coached, how many decades? 4 decades? I counted up the number of games he had been in uniform for. It was something over 7,000. How can you tell him, that his eyes and what he sees doesn't matter? I went up to him and I talk about what a loss to the game he is, right? He wasn't as anti-analytics. He used them. His batting coach said, he understood them. It was not an idiot. He got it. But he also had seen these things over and over and over and could tell you what was going to happen a lot of the time, or presuppose anyway, in a way a number claims to be able to do. So I went up to him and I said, Dusty, what happened to empiricism in baseball? And he said, it's dead, Jane. It's just dead. It's gone. Those guys, they don't believe in nothing other than the numbers. No heart, no soul. They're telling me that my eyes didn't see what my eyes saw. And then they're saying, and what your eyes saw will mislead you. And that's where it's got to change.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you just saying that, and I've heard variations of that. Like you said, Joe Madden, remember him saying, when the game started at 7 o'clock, he had 7 voices in his head. That always stuck with me. But was there, I know that there's probably a lot of answers to this, but can you think of one of the people that you've talked to for the book that really for you was eye opening? Like that Dusty, that's a great one. But was maybe there one that maybe jumps out.
Yeah, I think it's right up front in the book. I went to Mariano's induction in Cooperstown in 2019 and was privileged, and I'm not being sycophantic here. I'm privileged to have breakfast with Koufax and Tori, and they got into this discussion, which I mean, I wasn't there as a reporter. I was there as a lucky guest, an extra. And they got into this discussion, which I wish I could replicate, because Sandy's saying, they do this, and then Joe says, this, and then they were reaching across, and da da da, and they, in a kind of unspoken, finishing each other's sentences, kind of shorthand, they diagnosed what was wrong, what's going on, and Joe said, hard to watch, and then when Sandy Koufax said, I don't watch, that was eye-opening.
Wow. 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 I mean, that's not good. That's not good. But I think that, obviously there's been some good changes. I mean, you mentioned Theo Epstein, like, has had a hand in a lot of this, and a lot of these changes, Jane, we scream and we yell and say, "Oh, I can't believe they're doing this." And the example that I always give is David Ortiz, when he found out that he couldn't take both feet out of the batter's box. They were changing this, and he went on this rant, and then a year later he said, well, it made me a better hitter because it made me think of the next pitch. So there's other changes, but comes back to the book, comes back to your motivation, comes back to what your mission is here. So it's a cliche question, but Jane, you take over as commissioner. What are the three priorities that you want? Like, not, and like this, listen, it might not necessarily be able to actually execute, but what are the three priorities that you
watch me, Rob? Watch me.
Yeah, okay. Well, I know if anyone can do it, well, that's why I would absolutely want you to be the commissioner. There's no question about it, because I can tell. First of all, so in our book, Joe Kelly interviewed Rob Manfred for 45 minutes. And which was sort of like, I gave the analogy of the hockey commissioner, Gary Bettman, being interviewed by Ty Domi after being suspended a bunch of times. But what it did, it humanized Manfred's like, oh, you do like baseball a little bit. You do like baseball. Now, with you, there's no room for interpretation. I don't need anybody to interview you to know how much you love baseball. And that's where any commissioner should start, right there. So anyway, I've been too long-winded in this question. What are the three things that would prioritize?
How old are you?
I am tomorrow I turn 56.
Oh, you're a young one, but nonetheless, you're over the hump.
Yeah.
I'm not saying my age right now. Everybody knows what it is, but I'm old. We're dying. This generation of fans is dying. The generation that has loved and stuck with and tolerated, the abuse of this perfect game. We're dying. We're not going to be around that much longer to support the game the way we have. They have to grow a new generation of fans, and they can't do it unless they recognize how essential it is. I think maybe they're getting there. They're touting figures that are very encouraging about increased TV watching, though for the life of me, I don't know how anybody can find a game on all the many platforms they're on. And on the declining age of ticket sales purchasers. And that's great. But they need to do something radical. And they need to do something radical, not just to create a new fan base, but to change radically how people see MLB. Okay? So say we're letting every kid in who comes to a game with an adult for free. This is how we want you here. We have data that shows that baseball fans are created in their younger years and through going to a game with a live person that they love. So, how many ballparks? The thing about baseball is it has this huge inventory of seats and games, and the upper decks are like empty. I'm not saying give them the $300 seats behind home plate. I'm saying, there are very few sellouts, right? So let these kids in. I had an economist, my friend Michael Halpert, who's a professor at the University of Wisconsin La Crosse, just run some numbers for me based on Cubs prices. I think they were 2023, but I have to go back and ask him whether it might have been 2024. But if the Cubs gave if the Cubs gave a kid a ticket of I don't know, $12 or whatever ticket, $15, something in that ballpark, and grandpa or dad or uncle or scout troop person, whoever it is, bought the kid a small hot dog, a small soda, a cap, and one other edible. And I don't mean the bad edible, copycat, whatever. It would have cost the Cubs all of $4 million. This is chump change. Okay. Kyle Tucker can fund that out of his pocket today, right?
Yeah.
So the same year that they were paying Jason Hayward $21 million to play for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So this is doable. They have the money. It's a $12 billion industry. Don't tell me that it's an impossible cost. I just won't believe it. And don't show me the numbers either. I don't want to see them. I know it's possible. So imagine if you woke up one day and every newspaper that's left in existence or podcast had a blaring headline: Major League Baseball in a complete, turnaround and statement of caring about kids and the survival of this game, has decided to let every kid under the age of 10, accompanied by adult, in free.
Oh, what a great idea. You're already, I mean, there, you have the job already. Like, what a great idea. It's a great idea. And it immediately made me, before you get to another one, but immediately made me think of something Brett Phillips said. He said, I can tell you how to grow the game by 50% overnight. Tell every player he has to sign an autograph for 10 minutes.
Yep.
Because who doesn't remember you get an autograph from, doesn't matter what player he is, forever. Anyway, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
My my father's father, was a bookie and a rum runner. I come from good stock. And I never met him. He died young. But he serviced the Polo Grounds. And in exchange for that good service, my father became the 1927 water boy for the New York Football Giants. A moment that defined his life from there on. So I'm not moralistic about gambling, but I think what MLB has done, which was perhaps inevitable considering the Supreme Court decision and every other sport going in that direction, posed a more difficult imaging issue, because the sport that we don't accept gambling, and is the sign on every clubhouse door, and Pete Rose isn't in the Hall of Fame, and this is who we've been since 1919, on a dime goes, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, which is another way of saying baseball isn't baseball anymore, and we're willing to monetize everything. So how about taking the gambling profits, which are not, it's not like they get a cut of every bet. It's through sponsorships.
Sure.
Selling their data. How about taking that money and creating baseball academies in every major league city that does not yet have one? There's 6 at the moment that do, on a par with, equivalent to, in training and facilities and opportunities in every major league city, that they're equivalent to the ones they've built in the DR and elsewhere.
I love it.
And
it's
again, it solves a PR problem, and they have been working. There's no doubt they've been working hard to try to, do something about the deterioration of baseball in the black community and black players, which, is a huge
mm,
loss to the game. I give him props for that. And Tony Regans, who's in charge of this, said, I thought it was a 5-year deal. It's not. It's more like, maybe 10 or 20.
mm,
It's a serious problem. And again, it would be a great PR coup, and it would be doing the right thing,
yeah, yeah.
right?
And
Baseball is now the most expensive of the major league sports for a kid to play. That's astonishing.
it's amazing. And to go back to the funding of it, the gambling, we talk about genie not being going back in the bottle. Well, this isn't. It just isn't. And we've had on people, players, Lucas Giolito being one, saying the other problem they're having is that the threats for the
Yep.
players is just amping up more and more and more and more.
You cost me $1,000.
Oh, it's like
Yeah.
it's something as stupid as how dare you strike out 5 when I need you to strike out 6, and Lucas actually talked with Manfred about it, and Manfred, oh yeah, I think, put it this way, I don't think that it was enough on the radar, and I don't think that they're looking for solutions like the one that you just gave enough, because that is a logical solution that also helps a very, very real thing. Um,
Thinking out of the box is not instinctive for a lot
no.
of people.
Well, that's the
Um,
problem, Jane. Like they haven't. You tell me if you think this is right or wrong, but I feel the baseball more than maybe any other sport is a day later, dollar short on too much stuff.
like marketing their players.
Marketing the players. The thing that always amazed me was it was probably as little as 8 years ago that they told players you can't wear more than 2 colors on your cleats. Think about that. And kids, like that's all they cared about with the cleats. And baseball saying, oh, anyway, sorry.
And my third thing is, and this is a health issue, both in the sense of a health issue to guys who throw a ball for a living, but also a health of the industry. The scourge of elbows tearing like cheap Christmas wrapping on Christmas morning is just awful. It's awful for the players. Yes, you can go back and get a second. You can get what's known as a revision, as Shohei Ohtani did. 70%, approximately 70% of those guys make it back. 59%, I think, is the number who make it back to the same level. But it has the financial cost is astonishing of how much they're paying now for players not to play, to sit on the IL, as Ron Washington said. I'm sick of guys getting paid to sit on the IL. And I'm not saying they shouldn't get paid. I'm just saying, that's a lot of money that could be spent better. There are very serious people trying to address this, and I've talked to a lot of them. Major League Baseball issued a really pretty good report about that with good numbers, and it framed the issue, and it did something kind of in small, print that not an afterthought, but it was there, and I thought this is hopeful. They said, and it's had a deleterious effect of the quality of the play on the field. Whoa, okay, they get it. Throwing 100 miles an hour up under a guy's hands, where he can't hit it, is not that entertaining, right? So this is a genie that I think they do have to try to put back in the bottle. And Theo Epstein,
Sure.
is one who recognizes this problem, and he's been quoted as saying he pines for the day of the 11-man pitching staff. My friend Daniel Okrent, who I blame all of this on because he created rotisserie league baseball, and every general manager manages and staffs his roster like it's a fantasy team now. he said, "Oh no, no, 9. We need to go back to 9." Well, okay, not happening. How are we going to take the pressure off of elbows and at the same time start to turn that ship back towards the way it used to, the direction it used to go? My proposition is, first of all, if you have your top if pitchers, Garrett Cole or I don't know, there were 2 more last week. I mean, it's up to like over 50 so far
Mhm.
this season. If you have these guys disappear, and they're not disappearing, for a month, right? It's
Yeah.
depending on which surgery they choose, it's a year, basically, could be 16 months. You can't root for guys who aren't there. So you're not only that's where it attacks the health of the industry to me. You know, how come, how come I can't go out and see, him pitch? Well,
Mhm.
because he tore his elbow, because he's trying to throw 100 miles an hour on every pitch. Okay, my solution. We're going to create a hockey style healthy scratch list. Okay. And I'm willing to fudge with the numbers. They need to have, as long as their starting pitchers are only throwing 5.2 innings, and they have to get all those outs from relief pitchers who are basically dead by July. And then they start, picking people off the waiver wire and da da
Mhm.
da da. They have to find a way to take the pressure off. And they know which arms are dead, or have thrown too much. So healthy scratch list. Well, you're not going to use, the slot taken up by your yesterday's starting pitcher. Obviously, is one you could fill easily with a rested, healthy pitcher if you put yesterday's pitcher on this healthy scratch list. He's not gonna pitch for another 5 days, right? I mean, whatever. So that's one. And you take your rubber armed guys whose rubber's arms are stretched like bubble gum, and you say, you need a break. We're going to put you on there. No more, racing back and forth to Syracuse or Scranton
Mhm.
or and you give them a blow. You give them a couple of days off, and you shuffle fresher arms back in the game. However, okay, so you're creating more slots, and I understand that means that owners are going to have to pay for more players. It might save them some of the Tommy John money that they're spending in millions and millions of dollars. However, we're only going to have 11 pitchers available during each game.
Mm.
So you
Yeah.
have, so the pitching staff becomes fluid,
Yep.
uh, and but you have to start managing again in order to put emphasis and value on the starter who can actually qualify for something other than a quality start.
Did you like that? And I think that maybe Theo had a version of it. The starter, if he doesn't go a certain amount of innings, you lose a DH. There was that being thrown around to obviously get the starters to go deeper and maybe not to max out so much. I don't know if you agreed with that or if you like that. I mean, it's there's
Yeah,
no ideas are bad ideas, I guess. So
no, I've come up with a couple others. Bill James suggested a couple others to me.
yeah.
Um, how about no pitcher can throw 2 days in a row?
Mm.
Now that's only doable if you have a greater pool of pitchers at your available to you. And that would include pitching, what they call, getting the hots that they count in the bullpen.
Yeah.
When you tell a guy to get ready and he's throwing max heave in the bullpen and then doesn't get the call, that's the same as going in the game because
Yep.
basically that's all, those pitches count,
Yeah.
right? So when I say no pitching, I mean no hots in the bullpen either.
Mm.
So it completely inverts where you place the value, right?
Mm.
And you're saying, no, we're not going to do this to you because A, you're valuable as a commodity, and paying you to sit on the IL is stupid, and unhealthy. Um, There was another one I had, and I don't want to misstate it. I might have to open my book to find it. Dan Okrent, I think, came up with it. No pitcher may be removed from an inning until or unless he's given up a run in that inning.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, obviously for injury,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody will say, "Oh, well, he'll fake an injury." Okay,
Yeah.
they don't have to fake injuries very much these days.
No, 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 no.
And and again, it goes back to this very, poignant conversation I had with Dave Roberts about taking Clayton Kershaw out of his perfect game, where he had pitched up 7 innings in Minnesota on a cold day. His first start since coming back from an injury that kept him out of the playoffs in 2021. And his friend and his longtime catcher, A.J. Ellis, said what was needed there was situational dexterity,
I
which
like
is a
that.
great phrase, absolutely great phrase. Because, and I said this to Dave, here's baseball's problem, right? In a nutshell.
I'm writing that down, by the way. Yeah, okay. I love it.
What if the next day the headlines in every paper and every sports bite were Clayton Kershaw, the greatest left-handed pitcher of his generation, who has accomplished everything else that baseball has for a pitcher to accomplish, despite a history of many injuries, and has persevered. And look at him now, right? Has reinvented himself. Throws a perfect game on his first start of the season. Isn't that a reason to come to the ballpark to say, wow, I could go see one of those maybe?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool. And as opposed to the conversation the next day was, oh, Dave Roberts has done it again. He's pulled another pitcher out of a perfect game after 7 innings, having done it to Rich Hill and
Oh yeah. Oh.
did it too. I'm
Blake Snell. Well, Blake Snell and not the same situation, but the same tenor.
And the Dodgers were giddy when Kevin Cash.
Well, our guy Joe. We did a podcast immediately after. He said we were. I think only Joe can phrase it this way, but it's like we started standing on chairs and applauding Kevin Cash, saying thank you, thank you, thank you for doing that.
For keeping him in or for taking him out?
No, for taking him out. Blake Snell out in the World Series in 2020. He was dealing, and then they say thank you for your pitch count was at whatever it was 70, but the computer said no. It's time to go. And the Rich Hill analogy is another one, which is obviously 2018 World Series. But
and Rich is such a great example. I mean, he's one of my favorite people, and a big character in the book. And I have to call him to see how he's doing.
We just had him on last week. He said,
"How is it?"
Oh, he's great. He said he's available to throw live BP for the Red Sox since I said, how much does that pay, Rich? Like, I don't know. So
is he good? Have they inquired about
Well, you know what? It's not a crazy idea. This is how teams get ready for the postseason a lot of times, and it's not a crazy idea, but it's he's a gem. And also I would love to have you guys. We should do a panel or something with you guys.
That'd be cool.
Oh my goodness, so good.
So I'm talking to him the day after he gets bombed in the home opener in Pittsburgh in 2023. I think he gave up 7 runs, maybe, or 5 runs and 7 hits. I should memorize all these things, I suppose. But the truth is, and you know this better than most people, sports writers don't memorize all this stuff. Everybody comes up to you and goes, what did Joe DiMaggio do on the third at bat of his, I'm like, I don't know. I looked that stuff up.
Yeah.
But Rich is talking about his 4th go around with the Red Sox, where he had a game where, it felt The ball was coming out of his hand in such a way that he felt he could put it exactly where he wanted it. And in this very long career of his, it's now 14 teams, I believe, he said there's been maybe 12 times where he's had that incredible feeling. I can just put it this way. And he said it's kind of like saying, I think this canvas needs a little red over here. I'll put it there.
So awesome.
And the idea that, and he said he would step off the mound purposefully to milk a dramatic moment because he and AJ Ellis, talked about this, the obligation to entertain and the realization that this is theater and that people are coming to see something extraordinary. And I don't know about you, but I barely look up every time there's a home run anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, another one.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. Well, Jane, you've been so generous with your time, and I can't tell you how much I am so psyched for this book, September 9th. Make me commissioner. And I'm going to conclude this. I ask this question a lot of a lot of our guests, but I can honestly say there is nobody who I'm anticipating the answer from more than you.
Uh-oh.
And I'll say this to you, what I say to everybody. And before I ask this, just understand, like, this is the great thing about asking the question I'm going to ask, which is, I get a chance to talk to so many of these players about so many stuff that as a beat writer I would never get a chance to talk to. And I use this example. I used this a bunch of times this year. Sat down with Charlie Morton in June when he's really struggling. And Charlie, I don't know if you've ever talked to Charlie, is just,
Oh, I wish I could.
oh, I mean, Charlie, you ask him a question, there's a pause, so you're like, is he pissed at me or something? And then he's thinking, and then there's a 5-minute answer. I mean, legit 5-minute answer. But the reason I say this is because he said you get a chance to hear things just like I've heard from you today that you're like, that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. For Charlie, it was, if they give you the opportunity to figure it out, then figure it out. Like, okay, I ran home to my kids and I said, hey, they give you the opportunity to figure it out, then figure it out. Anyway, my point is there is no wrong answer to this question. And I've gotten so many different answers from so many different types of personalities. Great, really thoughtful answers from people that I would never have thought I'd get thoughtful answers to. But I will say this, whatever you say to this question, Jane, I guarantee you it's going to be top 3. I guarantee you. And that is,
Oh,
why isn't baseball boring? No wrong answers.
it's life. It's life. It presents opportunities when you least expect them to fail or to succeed or to cope with elements that are not of your making. The midges on the mound in Cleveland, the wind that picks up in left field, the decision by network television to have the Dodgers play the Baltimore Orioles during the day at Dodger Stadium, which they never did, causing Willie Davis to butcher 3 fly balls, which he never did. And it gives you the opportunity to respond with grace, both physically and in behaviorally. And it's such a craft. I mean, one thing that we're losing, I think, in this country is a respect for, reverence for craft. I have a son and a daughter who I raised them in Washington. They're not lawyers, doctors, consultants. They make things with their hands. My daughter is an exquisite pastry chef at a, very high tone resort, bespoke, they call it, at Troutbeck in Amenia, New York. She makes beautiful things with her hands. There's thinking in it. That's how she thinks. My kids think with their hands. My son is an electrician. He can fix anything. And, when everything goes to complete shit in this country, when nothing works anymore and we're getting there, the people who are going to survive are the people who can think with their hands. So watching what used to be the choreography of a double play in the infield, and the anticipation of what you have to do, watching to make it work, watching Ron Washington, a blessed soul who please get better, Wash. He was at Angel Stadium. People probably know he had quadruple bypass surgery and had to leave the Angels after getting that managing job and getting that team to rally around him. I'm watching him in his last year in Atlanta with Ozzie Albies, and he's criticizing him, chastising him in only the way Ron Washington can, high pitched and cackling, for a lousy tag he made at second base. And what's funny about it, of course, and this happens all the time, is that when I went to look in the recent games for the instance it might have been, I couldn't find it. But whatever they were thinking of, so Ron is like, you're tagging blind. You got to put your head in there, man. You got the difference between getting your head in there means your arm is in there, and you got a better chance of tagging the guy and then getting the ball, over to first base. And Ozzie's going, that's a monster coming in on me. I'm 180. He's 250. I'm not sticking my head in there. And so Wash says, well, that's playing scared. I'm not playing scared, man. Yes, you is, dog. Watching him demand excellence and point out in the funniest way, what needed to be done. And his reverence. I mean, he's the minister of particulars.
I love that.
And I adore him. Listening to him talk about how today's players don't know how to cut the bag. I mean, both he and Dusty, of course, were not in favor or thought much of the new bigger bags that have worked. It's increased speed in the game. That's great. But he said, you shouldn't need another extra 3 inches to be able to do that. But, Wash is going on about how they don't know how to cut the bag. Cut the bag means, of course, to position themselves as they approach the bag so that their foot, the outside foot, hits the corner just so as to propel you towards second base. He says, man, that's 3 inches. That's the difference between being out and safe, as opposed to the guys you see running through the bag, and going, oh, whoops, I have to go left. It's those kind of people and those kind of moments is why baseball will never bore me.
Oh, so good. So good. You made my day.
Can I tell you what my go-to question is?
Yeah.
So I say to people, if you met somebody who knew nothing about you, but you wanted them to understand who you really are, what makes you, I don't like to say tick, but what makes you you? What story would you tell about yourself that would explain who you are?
Oh,
and that one, that's a good one. Try that.
That is it. I don't want to steal it. That's TM. That's like trademark. It's going to make me think. That's a tough one. I could do why isn't baseball boring, but that question, I wouldn't want to answer that incorrectly. So it's a great question.
You either get great answers or no answers.
Yeah.
And so what I always do is tell them, okay, this is what I would say.
Yeah.
Self. And one thing, it works because it makes people feel like you're having a conversation, not a didactic. As you were describing it, 10 questions, and here they are. And so I tell them about the time when I was 3 and I fell in a swimming pool while trying to get a tube for a friend of mine who was 2, because we both had older sisters who would have gone and gotten them ahead of us. And I was sick. I wasn't supposed to swim that day. So I snuck under a chain link fence and went in and fell in. And long story short, I was unconscious out of it for a really long time. They had to pump a lot of water out of me. Obviously, I'm here, so okay, I survived. But the family legend is, that the next day, little Janie got up and said, "Can I go swimming today?"
I love that. I love that.
I didn't say it. I didn't really say it.
I love
went
that.
and checked. The answer was, did you save me any ice cream?
Oh, really, really. But is it, it's great to have those moments where you can, whether they get fictionalized a little bit or not, to have
Yep.
those moments. And I don't. And as you were talking, I'm thinking about things that my dad or my son, and one of the ones for my son was, and maybe this is for me, where my son was a very small kid who, for some reason, they put it nose tackle when we decided to have him play youth football, and he got driven back 15 yards and planted by some big kid. And I'm over on the sidelines. He runs back to me. He's like, Dad, I got right back up, which is one of the things that I said, try to instill, like, hey, you get knocked down, you get right back up. Dad, I mean, this wasn't without prompting. So maybe that's one of the things that I would do. But I don't want to
Something
keep,
you shouldn't get back up.
yeah, 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 yeah. So,
Rob, you're great. I love you.
well,
And this is a gas.
yeah, thank you so much. And again, appreciate your time. September 9th, Grand Central Publishing, make me commissioner. Let's go. Let's go. Number one, a very important topic. One of the best to ever has ever done it, Jane. So thank you so much for joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you.